Hello and good morning. So, this is Dr. Antonio again with the weekly live sessions with you guys, and hope you had an amazing weekend. Happy June 1st, and just wanted to let you know that the title of today's class is Happy Pooping Party, and you're invited. Um, I chose to speak about this today because it's a common thing that we all experience at some point or another, ideally every day. And so I wanted to connect with you guys about this topic and the importance of the topic. So it is important to have regular pooping, and regular means daily pooping. I remember a while ago, many years ago, I had a patient who was being seen by another medical doctor, and he had a different definition of what pooping would look like as far as when it should be done. And so my patient had suffered from constipation, and so she would go maybe once every 3 or 4 days, and he said, well, that was fine. And according to Ayurveda, that is not fine. There is a general rule of thumb that I like to call what goes in must come out. And so every day there's a daily consumption of food, and this food consumption gets processed by the body and the tissues, and the excess eventually gets to be discarded, whatever the body doesn't need. And so, if the body's not evacuating that, then where is it going? What is it doing? And this becomes a whole other level of complexity. And in a lot of ways in Ayurveda, we look at these signs as detectives, Ayurvedic detectives, to determine what could be the case that's causing it, but also it's an indicator that something is going on in the body that's not natural, not natural or not normal for an individual. Daily pooping is essential, and there's a general understanding that 1 to 2 poops a day is great. More than 3, 4, 5 is that excess, and that is an indication of malabsorption and other issues with the body. And so, because of that, when we know these things are going on, we want to understand, this is how we read the body. And so, as a general understanding for proper pooping and good quality pooping and regular pooping, we can start with the basics, which is just making sure that we have adequate oils, adequate fiber, and adequate hydration. And, that is also determined on a case by case basis because everyone's metabolism to some degree is different. And so it's really understanding and being intimate with your body. And, what you're putting in, we'll see coming out. We can determine good quality, food based on good quality tissues and good quality state of mind and good quality state of energy and clarity and memory and just motivation and inspiration. So when you're taking in nutrients that are supportive for the body and feel wholesome and are producing positive outcomes, then we can understand that something must be working pretty good. And if we're feeling low energy and lethargic and tired and unmotivated and uninspired and more sleepy and more droopy, then we think that maybe something else is going on. I mean, the body is telling you through certain indicators that there are things that are not working or things are working, depending on how you're feeling. And so we're using ourselves as that vessel, as that medium, as that place where we gauge things from and that are appropriate for us. This is what Ayurveda has to offer. There isn't a one size fits all. There isn't a generalized blanket that everyone should do this one thing and this will be the thing that's going to be the best for everybody. It really doesn't work that way because we're unique in so many ways. And so finding out what your unique combination of diet and lifestyle and sleep and environmental factors and emotional factors and what the mind is exposed to and just all these, there's lots of different components that create the wholeness of who we are. And so finding that right configuration and knowing that we're doing the right things, we'll see the better outcomes of health. And so, considering what what the body's producing, fecal matter or pooping. And so if we're pooping in excess, then that's an indicator something is off. If we're not pooping, that's an indicator something is off. And we could say, well, am I drinking enough fluids? Am I eating enough fiber? Am I, you know, having enough oils in my food? And if so, then I'll see that. Um, am I eating too much food? Am I eating too little food? Am I not eating food at all? We'll see the cause and effect relationship. In Ayurveda, this is called karya karana, which is cause and effect. So if we're feeling low energy, then there's a cause for that. If we're feeling high energy, there's a cause for that. And we use the body to understand ourselves. You know, we are in these vessels, we are in these vehicles that are transporting us day to day throughout the world, experiences, and we get to see from our firsthand experience what it's like to be in our own skin, in our own breath, in our own heartbeat, in our own sense of being, mind, body, and spirit. And that's where we go from. And so when you see an Ayurvedic professional, we look at you and the totality of things, the universal perspective, and the microcosmic perspective of who you are and what you're about and what makes you tick and what makes you thrive and what makes you smile and what makes you feel inspired. And we start to work with you in a way to help create this organized, fashionable sort of plan or protocol that's designed just for you. You know, simply because you're coming in with something, we're using these as indicators. You know, in Western medicine, when you get a diagnosis of something, that's a marker, you know, and sometimes that can play a role on the mind where it's considered a death sentence. Or you could flip it and say, wow, this is something else I just found out that's new about me. So what can I do to support it so that I can continue with whatever it is and sort of engage in a better way with it? And or either in some cases I can reverse it or cure it, as some people might say, or just manage it and make it wholesome and easy to live as part of our life. You know, just because we get something doesn't necessarily mean that we're meant to have the weight of it bearing on our shoulders and reduce the quality of life. Really, it starts with mind and perception. And, you know, it is difficult when there are certain things that are looming over us or heavier than others, like depression or some sense of grief or some sadness or things that are like heavy addiction where they just weigh and consume. You know, and that's a whole level of complexity that we won't be talking about today. But the gist of it is that we are the medium within the context of life, and we are within this body. And how can we really enjoy and thrive and smile and experience life, or not necessarily smile, or just be present with what is. You know, so coming back to the pooping, we can understand, well, what's happening to my body that I'm contributing towards. Am I stressed? Maybe that's why I'm not pooping. Am I eating too much and that's just causing the channels and the digestive tract to be obstructed? That could be possible. Am I feeling cold? And my body's natural thermoregulating mechanisms in the colon, which serve to create thermoregulation through the fecal matter, or is retaining the fecal matter because it's feeling cold on some level? Is there dryness in my diet? Is there too much mucus in my diet? Is there too much inflammation in my system that heat is causing my body to react in a way that it's keeping the extra moisture from the fecal matter, either drying it up and it's just hardening as stools in the colon, or it's just really retaining as much as possible. There's so many different reasons why. You know, so in Ayurveda, we have a general context of understanding a baseline platform in which health is considered from. And then when there's a deviation from that, we get to see like what's in place or what's not in place and what needs to be supported in order to produce a positive health outcome. And, you know, in Eastern medicine, holistic medicine, generally, some things take time. It takes time to accrue disease, you know, and it can, we'll say, sneak up behind us. In Ayurveda, we look at pathology. We look at the formation of disease that starts from the most subtle cues that most people don't pay attention to. You know, you might have like slight burning sensation today because you ate something that was a little spicy, and you're like, oh yeah, I ate something spicy, and it's a little burning sensation. So, um, you know, I'm just not going to pay attention to it and just keep doing what I'm doing today. And then 3 days from now, we forgot that there was burning sensation today, and we do something else that's provoking it. And then next week we continue. And then over a sudden, a month from now, we're like, wow, I'm having regular acidic um, digestion. What's going on? Where did this come from? it started 4 weeks before. The body is a historical system and it requires consistency for health, but it also requires attentiveness. And we remember things on a cellular level. So even though we start a great detox today, it's serving to undo a lot of the things that were done prior to today, but the benefits of the detox won't even start 100% till several days to a few weeks, so sometimes depending on the level of detoxification, a month from now or longer than that. So the body really has its own pacing, and when we're intimate with it, we can understand like what it's doing and how it correlates and how it relates to day to day to day and moment to moment to moment to season to season to season to different quadrants of our life or different phases of our life. Where we're at when we're in the senior years is different from where we're at in the adolescent years. And when we're in childhood years, it's different than when we're in basic adulting years, you know? So it's phase by phase, moment to moment. And it's what the awareness is in this moment in the context of this body, in the context of health, because there are daily functions that are still necessary. Breathing and sleeping and eating and exercising and pooping and peeing and sweating, all these are serving a purpose and they're part of the byproduct of being in a body. So what are they doing? What is their quality of health? And in Ayurveda, there's extensive lists that define each of the different categories of what it looks optimally within constitution. And then when it starts to deviate, what are those signs and symptoms? And these are the things that Ayurveda teaches us is how to pay attention to the subtle signs and symptoms that might start to accrue that we don't normally pay attention to, that accrue into something much bigger. And then all of a sudden we have this big thing that we're like, oh my God, where did this thing come from? But it came from these small little things that just amounted to something much bigger that we just didn't pay attention for, didn't make time for. It's always interesting when people say, I don't have time to take care of this for myself. Because at some point, the body's going to say, well, you didn't make the time for me before, but now I'm going to force you to be bedridden. And now you're going to have to make time for whatever is coming up for you in this given moment. And, we try to prevent that in Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a preventative science. It's a health maintenance science. And, it also helps to alleviate disease and sickness and illness by understanding cause and effect. So if we can prevent things now, why not? We'd save lots of money in co-pays and insurance and, hospital visits and medications and all that and all those things. We can own our own health. We can take responsibility for our own health. And it requires a certain level of being taught or reminded how to do so. Sometimes I've worked with patients that are like, oh, I didn't even think about I'm supposed to brush every morning my teeth. It's like I brush whenever I brush. It's like, no, you brush every morning. You brush in the evenings before bed. You know, oh, I didn't even think about the fact that I'm supposed to wait to eat after I brush my teeth in the morning. Like that's huge. Having breakfast or any kind of anything that you put into your mouth before brushing your teeth after waking up definitely adds, according to Ayurveda, to health complications over time. So like there are so many little subtle nuances of the day, of the daily function, of the daily activities and practices that if we pay attention to them, we notice where we might be a little bit off, we realign, readjust, and give it a little bit of time, and then the body will start to re-regulate itself and becomes impressive. When we are paying attention to the body in that way, when we are really listening and feeling, um, we start to thrive. And then, if we do get something, because we are human, we are bound to getting, things in the body, will bounce back so much faster because the body likes that attention and it's already been established in a platform that it can do so. So we increase the probability of the body bouncing back quicker than normal just by the little things that we do every day. So these are some of the considerations. And so, the happy pooping party is really an important piece. Understanding how we're pooping. What is our digestive system? Because pooping will indicate what's happening in our digestive system. And there are so many factors that influence the digestive system. So pay attention to your pooping. Pay attention to how you're pooping, how much you're pooping, how little you're pooping. If there's burning in the pooping, dryness in the pooping, a lot of mucus in the pooping, a lot of wiping, minimal wiping, full stools, loose stools, soft stools, pellets and pieces and fragments. As one of my patients calls it, nuggets. It's kind of funny that he calls it nuggets. I think of chicken nuggets, but anyway, so these are all things that the body's communicating through us. It's not uncommon that when I work with new patients that they're telling me they're not even aware of whether it floats or sinks. Well, when I start working with them, they start paying attention. And the only reason why is, you know, you're learning to understand your body's communication. So everything that your body does, the input and the output relationship, you get more connected to. And then suddenly you'll start understanding, like, oh yeah, I ate all that whatever in excess yesterday for dinner, and now my stools are off today. And then, okay, then tomorrow I eat this great menu, and then the next day my pooping is great. You'll start understanding the connection between all of that, your energy levels, your mental levels, emotional levels, physical energy levels, all these things based on noticing these subtle cues that the body's producing. You know, so that's all I have to say today. Just be aware of your pooping and what it's doing. Keep track of it, and report back. And I have my practice here in Philadelphia in Mount Airy area. And if you'd like to work with me, directly message me or private message me. You can find me on my website at www.stillpointayurveda.com. I'll also put the link in the comments area. And I hope you have a great day and happy pooping.